What's going on, everybody? This is an episode from the No Gimmicks Needed Wrestling podcast. Do you like podcasts and you want to see the full podcast? Make sure you check out the No Gimmicks Needed Wrestling podcast on all your podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, among many others. But you're listening to the episode right here on YouTube, so make sure you hit that like button and below, and make sure you hit the subscribe button to NC Studios and NC Level Up for all your gaming needs. This is the Nerd Coalition. Enjoy the show. AEW Dynamite this past week, we had, and I'm just going to get right to this, we had a rematch between Moxley and Cope. This time it was in a street fight because their match was so poorly received at Revolution. Revolution was an A+ show, and then I reviewed it, and then it stunk up the show by that poor ass main event, and they heard the criticism and the fans, so they done this to wrestling many times. Tony Khan said, well, we're going to run it back and we're going to do it on Dynamite, and this time on Dynamite they didn't do it as the main event. They put it in the middle of the show this time, kind of like learn their lesson now, but now it was a street fight. It was smoke and mirrors and stuff like that. So Edge, that's what I'm calling this man. Edge pulled out. Yeah, I'm gonna say because Cope is terrible. He pulls out what they call Spike. In reality, it's really Janice. Janice was a thing from TNA that Abyss used to use, but now they call it a Spike. It's a board with spikes on it, literally. And Moxley takes the spike. This was the highlight of Dynamite for all the wrong reasons this week. So, Copeland hits Moxley twice with the board, but then he lays it down and he gives Moxley a vertical suplex on these spikes. When these spikes, usually you would be like, like on thumbtacks, you roll over, you see the puncture wounds in your back. No, this thing is lodged into Jon Moxley's back. Jon Moxley gets up. It's still lodged in his back. Wheeler fucking Yuta comes out because we can't have a Jon Moxley match without Wheeler fucking Yuta. And him and the ref are trying to get these spikes out of Moxley's back. And they're pulling, you can see the skin pulling from Moxley's back. Like, if they was just to rip this thing down, Moxley probably had no back right now. If they decided to do it that way. So you had to carefully pull the stuff away. When he was doing it, his back was bleeding. You see all the puncture wounds and things like that. And even with the match still goes on, and Wheeler gets powerbombed through the table, and then Copeland loses with the bulldog choke that Moxley puts on. Moxley's still a champion. It's still gonna be Moxley versus Swerve at Dynasty. Now, I don't care about the breakdown of the match. I don't care about what else happened on Dynamite. Honestly, I want to talk about this because, as a wrestling fan, I like hardcore wrestling. I like some violence in my like violence in my hardcore matches, especially if it's warranted. But AEW has a problem, and this shit right here was stupid. It was fucking stupid. It was dangerous, and one move the wrong way could have punctured something in Moxley. It could have took him out. For what? To pop a reaction for 2,100 people during a snowstorm in Omaha, Nebraska? Really? Look, I'm sorry about this, but here's the thing. AEW has a problem when it comes. They do this dumb indie shit. I have to say this now. This dumb indie shit, which people understand. Like, listen, I've watched the indies. I have indie DVDs. I sat here and watched Ring of Honor versus CZW, death matches. I've seen the Knuckle Butcher. I have seen these people with exploding barbed wire. I've seen Nick Gage on the flaming cinder blocks. I've seen the light tubes. I've seen walking barefoot on thumbtacks. I've seen the violence before. But there are just things that are dumb that only AEW is doing to try to pop a crowd reaction because they're getting no crowd reactions in their shows. But if you learn how to tell a story, you would not need that to pop a reaction. If you told a good story, you would not need to redo the match and have the match regularly set at Revolution. If you did not decide to put main event that match and let Toni Storm and Mariah May the final ending main event Revolution and put this in the middle of the show, guess what? We wouldn't have this problem. And the people who are AEW marks are like, they really be getting, be pissing me off sometimes. I'm like, listen, stop making excuses for AEW. Stop sitting out there and saying that, hey, AEW don't need to be like WWE. Let AEW do its own thing. Let me inform you on something. Their own thing, what they're trying to do, is not working. Nobody's watching the show. The ratings are dropping. There is nobody watching Dynamite. Dynamite will be lucky if it gets over 500,000 viewers for its primary show. Are you hearing me on that? The main show of AEW can't even beat NXT. That's crazy. When AEW was averaging over 1 million viewers when it first started. That's a over 50% drop. And doing shit like this, see, y'all gotta understand, they're on Warner Brothers Discovery now. They signed them to a 3-year or a possible 4-year option TV deal that they're on TNT and TBS, and they have a streaming thing on Max. And if Max is like, what the fuck are y'all doing, they can get rid of that. And then we're with it don't matter how much money you got. If you ain't got no TV deal, it don't matter. Tony Khan and the Khans are going to have money. They own the Jaguars. They're going to have money. But if you cannot get the wrestling, this is said in 2019, if you cannot get the wrestling on television, then it doesn't matter how much money you have. So why would you do something that stupid to pop the rating? Or not pop the rating, to pop the crowd. Was the match better than it was at Revolution? Sure. Maybe that's the one that should have did at Revolution. But that spot is not needed. AEW does stuff to the point where they do all these spots. They do all these crazy, insane spots to try to pop the crowd, to get that instant internet reaction that it can go around there and be like, okay, our name is in anybody's mouth. But if you just tell good enough stories for people to go back and go to your show and just watch the show to be in the storytelling, you can look. Q, you saw it. CM Punk, Drew McIntyre had an awesome Hell in a Cell match.
Yep.
Ain't need no spikes.
No barbed wire.
None of that. Hey, you know what's? Because when Drew McIntyre missed the Claymore kick and his lower back hit the steel steps, that was like, oh my God. You felt the brutality in that match. Oh, we want another one? Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn had a non-sanctioned match, and they had no blood. No blood. They had a barbed wire steel chair. Kevin Owens took barbed wire to the face. No blood. What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? And then you got the AEW marks that they're saying, well, they're not WWE. Stop comparing them to WWE with those matches. It ain't about comparing WWE to, just tell a story. And guess what? When the story warrants that kind of violence, it will make better sense. It'll be better received. Opposed to doing that shit every week on a Wednesday in Nebraska with only 2,000 people in there that nobody give a shit about. You build up to that shit. Make Spike part of the story. You know, it's like, imagine if they had a compelling story between. Remember WrestleMania 32 when it was Dean Ambrose versus Brock Lesnar in the street fight, and the whole story was Mick Foley.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah.
Every time I see this shit, I realize, you know what, Brock was right.
You had Mick Foley giving Ambrose weapons and Terry Funk, and it was like, okay, they were building up to the story of how extreme he could be, even though they didn't use any of the stuff in there, because Brock was like, we ain't doing none of that shit. But that's what it was part of the story. Y'all just doing shit for the sake of doing shit, and guess what? It'd be different if it was working like this is the alternative. This is where we gonna have the indie hardcore stuff wrestling at, but it's not popping. No, it's not doing anything. Y'all, it's not doing anything. Y'all have to get smaller arenas so y'all crowds don't be looking empty, so people can stop taking those pictures showing the empty seats all in the arena. You'll have to get smaller arenas. Guess what, Q? They come into the Leah Core Center in 3 weeks for, or not 3 weeks, in about 2 weeks for Dynasty. I plan on going, but it's at the Leah Core Center at Wells Fargo. So that spot pissed me off, and it also upsetted me about how the fans, like the AEW Mark stuff like that, was trying to defend for that, and I'm like, where is AEW any better today than it was before that spot? Answer that question.
Nope.
Not at all, right?
Not at all.
So my biggest thing is, why do that spot? What if you take that spot out the match? What does it do for the match? Nothing.
Nothing.
You lose nothing from that match if that match is not in there, because it will still have been received like it was already, better than Evolution, but that's it. And once again, all the decent stuff that happened on Dynamite was not existent because of that dumb shit right there. We possibly got a Dax Harwood heel turn because he turned on Cope at the end of the matchup because he didn't help him up. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the fact that, hey, Athena could be actually coming in to take on Mercedes Moné because she's been stuck in Ring of Honor purgatory. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about anything else that happened on Dynamite because we stuck here in this shit because of that stupid ass spot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was dumb. Like Moxley, so then if Moxley really hurt himself and now he's out for 9 months because he has a punctured lung or a puncture.
I was more worried about his spinal cord.
Facts. That's
attached to your brain.
Yeah.
And other parts of your body. You could have been paralyzed. You fucking dope.
You're right. You are absolutely right. I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't even thinking about that. You're absolutely right. For what? And now if something happens to Moxley,
you know what that remind me of?
Who?
Remember that scene in Edward Norton's Hulk when Abomination got that before he was Abomination, yes. He was getting them needles in his back. That's immediately what I thought of.
That was crazy, and I was if you lose Moxley. Then all of a sudden, what the hell? Now your company's down a star, especially going into Dynasty, where he gotta go get Swerve, or especially going into All In Texas, or whatever the case may be. You need a drastic change, and a drastic change is you need to. There's violence in wrestling, but you need more storytelling and to limit those spots because you can't. AEW, you have to do better. You have to do better. You have to understand the error of your ways. The end.